He sat in the shadows, dressed in rags, but his eyes held a lonely, heavy feeling. The world only saw his worn-out coat. I saw the quiet sadness in his deep eyes, a silence that felt richer than all my school debts combined. The blinking sign of the Midnight Grind Cafe was the only light that mattered to Elara. At 21, she was crushed by huge student loans and worried about a mother she couldn't afford to visit. Her life was just a cycle of work shifts, school papers, and carefully counting $3 packets of instant noodles. She had no time for dating, no patience for big dreams, and especially no sympathy for the city's actual homeless people. Her ambition was like a strong wall, stopping her from looking down, not a helpful map guiding her way. She was leaving the cafe, struggling with a pile of textbooks, her whole body aching from tiredness. That's when she saw him again. Kael leaned against the cold stone fountain, looking exactly like a person who had nothing. His coat was full of patches, his beard was messy, and he held a broken plastic cup. He didn't actually ask for money. He just sat, watching the busy crowd with a calm, thoughtful air. His eyes, deep warm brown, were the only things that showed he was smart and educated. To Elara, he was just a sad picture, a sharp reminder of the poverty she was desperate to escape. One evening, a sudden strong wind blew Elara's school notes everywhere onto the wet ground. She mumbled a frustrated word, her hands freezing as she tried to catch the papers. Kael moved surprisingly fast and gracefully, picking up the sheets before they got ruined. He didn't just hand them back. Kael, the wind has its own rules, like in science class. It's a force you can't fight. His voice was deep and smooth, the kind of voice you'd hear on the radio. Elara paused, surprised by the smart words coming from a man who looked homeless. Elara, thanks. They're really important. She grabbed them back too quickly. Kael, the most important things often slip away fastest. Be careful what you put your hope in, Elara. He knew her name. She realized he must have seen it on the corner of the paper. She felt a slight wave of worry. She quickly dropped 2 crumpled dollars into his cup, more than she could spare, and rushed off. But for the first time, her ambition felt less like a protective wall and more like a small cage, shaken by the surprising calm in Kael's eyes. She had given him money to forget him, but now she couldn't stop thinking about him. They were about to meet again, and this time, she wouldn't be able to leave so easily. 3 weeks became a pattern. Elara stopped giving Kael money, but she didn't stop seeing him. She realized he wasn't just a beggar. He was a fixture. She'd stop 10 feet away, pretending to check her phone, but really listening to the strange sound of his small, tinny radio playing classical music, or, even stranger, watching him read. Tonight, Kael wasn't holding his cup. He was absorbed in a thick, worn book that looked far too academic for the street. The cold was sharp enough to hurt. Elara felt the heat draining from her body as she waited for her late bus. She pulled her worn coat tighter. A cloud of steam puffed out with every anxious breath. Kael looked up, his sepia eyes meeting hers across the gap. He saw the tremble in her jaw, the way her shoulders hunched against the biting wind. He didn't say anything, but he lifted a hand toward her, a silent invitation to share the tiny bit of shelter the fountain wall offered. Elara hesitated. Her mind screamed, danger, poverty, stay away, but her feet moved. She needed the minimal windbreak. She sat 2 feet from him, her back stiff. Elara, what are you reading? She regretted the question the moment it left her mouth. She didn't want a conversation. Kael slowly closed the book, running a thumb over the spine. Kael, Plato, on the concept of simulacra, that the copy can become more real than the original. He smiled faintly, a movement that surprised her with its elegance. Fitting, wouldn't you say? Out here, we are all copies of something we used to be or wish we were. Elara's breath caught. This wasn't the rambling of a struggling man. This was a man of immense thought. Elara, I read Plato in high school, but I never understood the point of philosophy when you have to worry about rent. Her voice held a sharp, bitter edge. Kael, but that is precisely the point, Elara. When you have nothing, your thoughts are the only things you truly own. They are your final wealth. He paused, leaning closer, and his eyes searched hers. Tell me one thing that money cannot buy you right now. The question felt like a punch. She didn't have to think. Elara, one day of rest. Real rest. The kind where your mind isn't doing subtraction problems with your bank account. Kael studied her face, not with pity, but with a surprising understanding. He looked deep into her exhaustion, acknowledging it. Kael, then I share your burden. Rest is the most luxurious thing. In that small, frozen space, sitting beside a man who was officially invisible to the world, Elara felt truly seen for the first time in months. The connection was an electrical spark, immediate and overwhelming, purely because he understood her core pain, the weight of endless striving. She realized her judgment of him, based only on his coat, was utterly wrong. This shared moment of emotional truth was the pivotal moment. Elara, softly, Kael, what happened to you? He looked away, his jaw tightening. The light went out his eyes. The question was too real, too dangerous. Kael, the same thing that happened to everyone, Elara. Life chose to test me. He stood up abruptly. I must go. He vanished into the night, leaving Elara alone with the cold and the buzzing shock of their profound, fleeting connection. She felt a sudden, sharp, aching need to know more about the man who saw her hidden poverty, while sitting his own. After the night by the fountain, Elara's routine broke. She started looking for Kael, not for 5 seconds, but waiting for him. Her carefully built wall of pragmatism was cracking, letting in the dangerous light of feeling. She was attracted to him, not physically, but by the gravity of his mind and the tragic wisdom in his eyes. This feeling was a problem, a huge one. Her best friend, Maya, a practical nursing student, caught Elara staring out the library window one afternoon, watching the plaza. Maya, Elara, what are you doing? You're supposed to be studying corporate finance, not analyzing the pigeons. You haven't slept properly in days. Elara, it's nothing. Just, there's a guy outside. He's homeless, but he talks like a professor. Maya closed Elara's textbook with sharp thwack. Maya, listen to yourself. You need to keep your head down. You're one missed payment away from disaster. You think a guy who sleeps outside is going to fix that? He's a distraction you can't afford. He probably has problems bigger than yours, and you can't carry anyone else's burden right now. Maya's words weren't cruel. They were the brutal truth Elara lived by. The conflict wasn't just Kael's status. It was a conflict between Elara's survival instinct, Maya's voice, and her emotional need, Kael's voice. That evening, Elara found Kael sketching rapidly in a small, worn notebook under the glow of a street lamp. He was drawing the gargoyles on the old university building with incredible detail and artistry. Elara, you draw beautifully. Kael, it is a habit. It focuses the mind. The rich, you see, they try to buy beauty. The rest of us must learn to capture it. Elara, why are you here, Kael? Why do you choose this? She gestured vaguely at a situation, her voice tight with confusion and a hint of accusation. Someone with your mind, your grace, you could teach. You could be someone. Kael's expression hardened immediately, the same retreat she'd witnessed before. Kael, do not confuse my circumstance with my choices. Elara, not everyone wants the cage of your ambition. And not every person you see struggling has lost everything. Some of us simply choose to lose the false things. The tension rose. His words suggested he was choosing this life, a choice Elara found insulting. Given her own desperate fight for stability, she felt a sting of betrayal, thinking he was mocking her desperate ambition. Elara, that's easy to say when you don't know what it's like to worry about the next meal. Maybe for you it's a choice or a test. For people like me, it's just a cruel reality. Don't lecture me about losing false things when a warm bed is a real one. She had pushed too hard. Kael's eyes went cold. He didn't defend himself. He just looked at her with an immense, unreadable sadness that spoke of a deep wound. Kael, forgive me. I speak of things I should not. You are right, Elara. The cold is very real. He closed his notebook, gathering his few possessions. The conflict was established. Elara's suspicion and survival instinct versus Kael's intellectual facade and hidden, painful secret. The distance between them had never felt wider. The weather intervened with a cruel, sudden force. One night, A fierce blizzard swept in, dropping the temperature rapidly and locking the city down. Elara was caught halfway between the cafe and the bus stop. The biting snow was instantly blinding. She stumbled toward the nearest shelter, an old glass bus stop kiosk, thankfully still mostly intact. She pushed inside, shaking, only to find Kael already there, huddled in the corner, holding a small, flickering candle. The air was thick with their shared breath and the smell of damp wool. The forced proximity instantly crushed their earlier conflict. They were two humans against a sudden natural threat. Elara, it's insane out there. I've never seen it turn so fast. Kael, the city forgets its poor easily, but the storm forgets no one. Elara sat opposite him, pulling her knees to her chest. She noticed the small, gentle smile Kael gave her, a look of shared experience, not pity. Elara, you look prepared. Do you keep a survival kit? Kael, chuckling softly, not a kit, just habit. A man who lives outside knows the difference between a threat and a spectacle. This is definitely a threat. He carefully shifted the candle, extending its small warmth toward her. They sat in silence for a long time, the only sound the wind howling outside the thin glass. Elara broke the quiet, not with an academic question, but with a memory. Elara, when I was little, my mom used to pretend the snow days were vacations. We'd turn off the heat, make tea, and tell each other stories to forget the cold. We were so poor, but I remember laughing until my stomach hurt. Her voice was soft, vulnerable. She was sharing the poverty she usually hid. Kael, I remember snow days, too. My grandfather had a library filled with books. When it snowed, we were stranded explorers. He would read Shakespeare to me by the fireplace. He believed every great adventurer needed an audience. Kael paused, his eyes distant. He's the only one who ever saw me without needing something from me. The shared memory was a secret language. He had just revealed his upbringing was wealthy, even privileged, but focused on love and literature, not just money. His confession wasn't a boast. It was a profound opening. Elara, your grandfather sounds lovely. Kael, he taught me that the real beggars in this world are those who have everything, but cannot see the value of a single genuine conversation. He looked directly at her, the warmth of the candle reflecting in his sepia eyes. Like this one, he reached out a damp, rough hand, not to touch her, but to gently push a strand of wet hair from her cheek. It was a gesture of pure, tender care. Elara didn't pull away. She saw past the rough skin, past the patched coat, and into the soul of the man who understood the language of her deepest vulnerability. The blizzard broke, leaving the city stunningly white and quiet. Elara rushed back to the plaza the next day, her mind buzzed with the shared vulnerability of the night. She needed to see Kael, to tell him that she finally understood that his choice was spiritual, not mocking. She wanted to tell him that she was falling in love with the richness of his mind, not in spite of his poverty, but because of how deeply he carried it. But Kael was gone. His usual spot by the fountain was empty. There was no sign of his patched coat or the chipped cup. Panic tightened Elara's chest. Had he moved on? Had the storm taken him? She searched frantically, her eyes scanning the area where they sheltered. In the corner of the bus stop kiosk, tucked under a loose floor tile, she found a small, heavy object wrapped in a silk scarf. Unwrapping it, Elara's breath hitched. It wasn't money. It was his worn copy of Plato, but tucked inside was a single, folded piece of thick, expensive stationery, and an envelope addressed to her. The letter was written in Kael's beautiful, flowing script. My dearest Elara, I saw you by the fountain, burdened by your books and the fear of losing everything. I wanted to help, but I had to know. Did you see me, Kael, or just the circumstance I was wearing? When you chose to share your deepest exhaustion with a man who had nothing, you gave me the answer I needed. I never asked for money because I never needed it. My family owns the holding company that funds half the grants at your university. I am Kael Donovan. I spent the last year living without my name, my fortune, and my comfort to understand if genuine human connection still existed. You found it for me. You loved the idea of rest, not the idea of rescue. You loved the person beneath the poverty. I have left the square, but I have not left you. Look to the address on the envelope. It is the address of the foundation that just paid off the final year of your tuition. It is also the address of my home, where I am waiting to speak to you, not as the beggar who saw your soul, but as the man whose soul you saved. I was searching for authenticity. You were authentic. Elara stood in the clean snow, the beautiful stationery trembling in her hands. The central event, the revelation, was here, but it wasn't the betrayal she feared. It was a massive, ironic affirmation of their love. He had risked everything to prove his heart was more valuable than his bank account, and she had passed his test without even knowing she was taking it. She looked up, seeing the clean, bright university buildings differently now. The burden was gone, replaced by shock, relief, and profound, unexpected love. She finally understood his words. The crucial things often escape us the fastest, but this time, love had anchored itself deep. She gripped the envelope, ready to face the real man, the real connection, and the dazzling future they'd found together where she least expected it. Have you ever found love or connection where you least expected it? Defying all common sense and expectations? Share the beautiful, surprising twist in your life on the comment section.